Isom #1 was a great start into introducing us into the cool characters that exist in the RippaVerse. It's only a matter of time before the representation police show up and say, well, this isn't an accurate representation, and why isn't he talking about this? But for now, let's talk about the cool stuff that was in the book. Hey, what's up, nerd fan? This is your boy Gashawn. I want to welcome you to Into the Nerd. Today, we're talking about Isom #1. This is actually the first foray into the comic universe, as I know so far, from Eric July or Young Ripper 59. Now, I had a video about this before, talking about when he was. It didn't come out just yet. He had like an intro video for it. People were reacting to it positively and negatively before anything even came out. You can go watch some of that. I was definitely going to support him because he has a ton of views when it comes to the comic book industry at large that I do agree with. I'm not like I agree with everything that he says, because obviously you're going to disagree with something. However, when it comes to the comic book stuff, I absolutely do. As well as how it concerns representation when it comes to black characters and having original black characters. Now, a lot of people who have commentary on comics or anything usually don't jump into the medium that they're criticizing, which is what made this even more impressive to me, that he was going to jump in to creating his own comic and then creating an original black character like he thought was more important than having a reskinned version of existing white ones, which happened already in Marvel, DC, and other things, right? So I was already on board just based off of what I was hearing and some of the videos that I've already seen from him, and just, you know, not hinging on just race but storytelling, right? I was already down with that. Now, just going, before we get into like some of the story parts in here, I was already impressed by what he was offering as far as me being a collector. Like, for example, these are some of the cards, right? Which he was right, they are rather big. Just kind of show you a few of them. This is like got the plastic on here a little bit, but like you got this boy right here. You get the Isom card. You got the Yaira card, which is pretty dope, right? And even the Santuan card. Right? Now, as a collector, I love stuff like that. I love being able to have collectibles. And he's a real nerd, so he understands that part of me, if you're hearing the card shuffle and all that stuff like that. Now, besides that, obviously, I had to get the cover A, because this is the one that's obviously going to be worth the most. I also got a C, which is around here somewhere, but this is actually my favorite. This is my favorite one. But as far as how this stuff looks, there's a lot of attention to detail. Obviously, he talked about how much money went into going into this. I believe so, because the book is great, the binding is great, the artwork is great. I love it all. And that's a big deal when it comes to someone who is pretty much self-funded, right? Because most of the stuff, all the stuff was already created before we started pouring money. It wasn't like a GoFundMe kind of thing, which is dope, which is really, really dope. Now, he also had t-shirts, he had a whole bunch of different packs, signed stuff. That's great. It's great for the collector. That's awesome for me. Now, getting into some of the story aspects, I don't want to get full spoilery, but there's going to be some spoilers ahead just in case you need a warning. But for example, the main character, Avery Sylvan, right? This is a character who is an except, which is the terminology used for superhuman beings. Well, at least some of them, because apparently not all of them are called that, and not everyone who has powers is an except. So that's one of the things that we're going to have to find out later on. But the problem is that, you know, he has his sister calling him, saying there's a family friend missing. I guess she was going to offer her a job of some sort, and then she disappeared. He went to go find out from this other guy he knows from the past that is a crime lord, not a very nice guy. And their interaction in the beginning, obviously, is what spirals out of control and leads to the rest of the story. Now, this is a mostly grounded story. I do like that it doesn't take place in space. Mind you, I like space stuff. That's like, I like the cosmic things. But it's rather grounded. And the character, the main character himself, Avery Sylvan, or he's not Isom yet. Isom, I guess, he was Isom. Isom is his superhero persona, but he's Avery right now without the costume, which he does end up putting on at the end, you know, kind of teasing like, okay, well, after all the conflict that's been happening in the actual issue, this is what we got coming next. I do like that Eric doesn't shy away from the action, because there is quite a bit of fighting in here, and that Avery doesn't win all of the fights, because that's big for me. The hero just can't wipe out everybody. He wiped out a lot of the goons, but then when Santuan came in, who was an extremely powerful dude, just literally threw him for miles until he hit Yaira, which was crazy, right? And also, he had to be kind of creative when it came to getting Avery to beat him when he fought Santuan a second time, considering he just got his ass whipped. And even the second time, he got his ass whipped. Avery's also not perfect as a person. Even though he does own a business and he's got like his own thing, people depend on him. He employs people, which is, I'll get to this later about the whole representation thing. I think that's a very, very important thing that a lot of those guys are probably going to gloss over, because there were other things that weren't said in this issue and probably won't be said in this issue if you know how Eric July works. A lot of things that they probably want him to say that he's never going to say in these things. But there's some really good things that are said here. There's some pretty cool commentary about a guy like Avery that they're probably just going to ignore because they want to see some of the other stuff, right? But his character also isn't perfect because he's kind of ignorant. And what I mean by that is, like, he's easily incensed. Like, the dude disrespected him at some point. Literally, like, the crime lord was just pretty much talking down to him, like, what are you going, like, pretty much talking to him like he was crazy. And he literally said, like, who are you talking to? And the entire point of him not just searching for the girl that his sister told him to look for, but he was just like, you disrespected me, so now I have to make an example, which obviously can lead him to getting hurt more times than not, which it actually did. Like, that type of reaction, like, he looks like he can kind of act cool, calm, and collected at sometimes, but he can be talked into conflict, which, hey, I mean, not everyone's perfect. It happens, right? We also got introduced to a couple of cool characters that were in this club that Avery had to go into, and actually wound up having a second fight with Santuan as well. So we're wondering what kind of part will they play. Even Yaira, who I mentioned in the beginning, like, they actually talk about some things on her card that she's really, really old, apparently. So she's not really an except, she's something else. I mean, she might not even be from this world, or, so on and so forth, which is interesting. And then the Norfolka dudes, which are, they're in a band now, but apparently they're kind of like our Thor type Scandinavian figures, maybe. Not all of them is. Either way, they're based in some kind of lore that might only exist in this world. And I want to see what it is. And there's actually something that they know that's supposed to be coming. So obviously, you can start to see that these characters are going to spider off in their own different adventures, which is cool. That's really what you want to set up. You want to set up what's coming up next, because obviously in Isom number 2, he's finally got the suit on, because the whole time he doesn't really have a suit on. He's fighting like a hoodie and stuff like that while leaving his business to his partners. So like while he's doing that, and even his partners, they don't ignore that. They're like, damn, like he's going out here doing this, whatever he's doing, that we're gonna, we might need somebody to replace him eventually, because he's, this is kind of crazy. And they didn't ignore that, that part of the writing. They didn't just act like, oh, well, our boss is gone, so let's just act like we don't know what's going on. That was a good attention to detail. And obviously at the end of this, the person who makes his costume makes some adjustments to it. He puts it on and he's like, all right, still fits. And that's pretty much leading into what's going to happen there, as well as the main villain also, being so incensed by what Avery has been doing in his past issue, like whipping his henchman's ass and his main henchman and disrespecting him and his organization. Now he's like, all right, I'm about to put his sister's address out there. It's on site, so go get her. And that's obviously going to cause a lot of conflict, especially if, Avery's going to be a whole bunch of places at once and defending. And what if, this guy is able to hire other exeps? What if he's fighting more than just Santuan? What if it's a whole bunch of other people? And you also don't really know the extent of Isom's powers, which is also hinted at in these cards. So I hope you got the cards, by the way. He wasn't lying when he said those cards do tell a lot of really cool information on there. And obviously I think every volume, I don't know. I'm wondering, maybe every volume is going to have their own set of cards. And if that's it, I'm going to definitely get every single set, because that's just who I am when it comes to stuff like this. I got to do that. But as far as the story, it was a great start. There's any drawbacks? I guess maybe some of the dialogue leading up to the fight scenes maybe dragged a little, I guess, if that's anything to really be. But I mean, I was interested. There wasn't a part of the time when I was reading the book and I was going like, oh, I'm just dragging. I just want to get through it. Because it was 96 pages. So when you have that many, you got to be conscious of type of content you're writing. Like, is it going to be engaging? And it felt good. I was reading it. I was definitely interested, and I just wanted to learn more and more about the character. And it left off at a good point where I'm like, all right, so now the next thing he's actually going to be Isom, and it's probably going to be a lot more into the whole superhero journey of what's happening. Like, why did he put down the costume in the first place? What the deeper relationship with their family? Like, who are these other exeps? What is it? Like, what makes an exep, right? What makes that? Like, did someone make them in a lab, or is it something like from outer space? Similar to what they did with like the seedlings and like Image and stuff like that, right? It could be a whole bunch of things. So I'm actually interested to see where this goes. Now, when I was talking to you earlier about the representation police, right? There's a ton of black characters in here. The villain's black. The hero is black. Like Santuan, who is just like a henchman, which means I feel like he might bounce back and forth. Like, he might work for this guy for a while, but then he might even find a conscience, and maybe he might have a comic on his own, right? There's so many different characters that are there that are occupying different roles. And Avery himself is successful. He makes money. He did his own thing. But because there's no narrative about anything race-related, I think that people who love that kind of stuff are going to be like, but where is this? Like, he's not accurately a black... And that, I can see that coming. It's stupid for me. I don't agree with that. I actually really like it when you can just have a black characters just be who they are, and that's it. Versus you going like, they have to say these type of things. And I can already see it, because there's some people who were complaining like, oh, why does a villain have to be black? Why not? Why not? Like, people just want to complain about something. And obviously these are people who already had an issue with Eric before that. Some of them probably didn't even read it. Some people just looking at some of the scans that people put up online. Stuff like that. But this was solid. It was a solid first outing. Like, it's not a person who has a whole bunch of comics to his belt. This is great for someone's first official comic out there. And he's probably looking at these videos and probably taking some of the critiques and going, okay, well, that makes sense. So I feel like the second thing is going to be even better. And the fact that, he's got like industry veterans that are actually drawing and illustrating for these things, it looks great too. It didn't look like something that just came out of someone's basement. Even though I'm going back to the whole presentation thing, but it all factors into the overall product. So obviously, look, congrats for a great launch. I think that I can't wait to see what else you're going to do. Hopefully Isom 2, I'll get my hands on that sooner than later, right? I know last video I saw, he said he was like at 50 pages in. I'm excited. I hope you're excited too. Let's talk about it. What did you like about it? Did you like it at all? Hopefully you bought it. We'll talk about it. Into the Nerd.